Okay, so what is the actual secret formula for the perfect drama? Think back to the last time you were just completely glued to a performance. Maybe it was a massive blockbuster movie, a gripping stage play, or one of those television series you just couldn't stop watching. Have you ever wondered if there's an ultimate foundational recipe for storytelling, like a master blueprint that defines exactly how to captivate an audience? Well, today we're taking a really energetic dive into an ancient masterwork that claims to hold exactly that. Welcome to The Explainer. I am so excited to get into this source material with you today. We are unearthing what is widely known as the fifth Veda, Bharata's Natyashastra. This incredibly detailed ancient Sanskrit manual is literally the foundational pillar of Indian aesthetics. And it's not just a playbook. It is a massive, comprehensive guide to theater, dance, music, and honestly, the very psychology of human emotion. Here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the ultimate fifth Veda, then compare the myth versus the historical reality, dive deep inside the 36 chapters, check out the divine recipe for drama, and finally, wrap up with the 4 pillars of acting. All right, let's jump right into part 1, the ultimate fifth Veda. To really grasp what this ancient manual is all about, we kind of have to shift our perspective on art itself. When we talk about aesthetics in the Western philosophical tradition, thinking of Aristotle or Hegel, we're usually talking about the philosophy of fine arts or just the theory of beauty in general. But Indian aesthetics, exactly as it's laid out in our source material, takes a wildly different approach. It is highly technical. It's literally the science and technique of fine art meant to present the absolute. So it's a lot less about pondering what beauty is, and more about the exact, rigorous mechanics of systematically engineering an aesthetic experience. And that brings us to the text itself. The Natyashastra is often referred to as the Natya Veda, or the fifth Veda. Now, Bharata Muni is the legendary author who popularized this work, but think of him almost like a master compiler. He actually pulled together and synthesized material from even older, ancient teachers. The result is this classical manual designed to be the ultimate practical guide. It was created specifically so actors would know how to perform, dramatists would know how to write flawless plays, and the aesthetes, the audience, would know how to properly enjoy them. Moving on to Section 2. Myth versus historical reality. So, how does a monumental text like this actually come into existence? Well, first we've got the divine myth. According to the tradition recorded right there in the text, the existing 4 Vedas were restricted, meaning they weren't accessible to everyone. So the gods, led by Indra, go to Brahma and basically ask for a new, totally accessible art form, something that would bring delight to both the eyes and the ears of everyone. In response, Brahma supposedly engineers this magnificent 5th Veda. It's a highly romantic, religious origin story, and it perfectly establishes the absolute sanctity of the dramatic arts. But putting the gods aside for a second, modern historians have tackled this exact same question using some pretty incredible empirical linguistic detective work. Pinning down a specific date is notoriously tough, but scholars look at the grammar and references. For example, the Natyashastra only mentions musical instruments of the harp variety, and since we know the zither showed up in Indian sculpture around the 3rd century BCE, the core musical theory in the text has to predate that. On top of that, it shares highly technical musical terms with Valmiki's Ramayana, which places its early compilation around the 5th to 4th century BCE, with the final text coming together by the 2nd century CE. It's just wild how the absolute lack of zithers actually helps us date this legendary text. Okay, Section 3, inside the 36 chapters. So the manuscript we have today, which relies heavily on the commentary of a 10th century scholar named Abhinavagupta, is a massive 36 chapters long. But to really understand the flavor of this entire book, we just need to zero in on chapter 1, because it is unbelievably action-packed. Seriously, it's wild. The chapter kicks off with sages asking Bharata about the origins of this art form, and he answers by describing the very first play ever staged during Indra's Banner Festival. But here is where it gets crazy. During this premiere, actual demons called Vignas attack the actors on stage. Indra has to physically fight them off, and Brahma steps in to pacify the whole situation. And because of this completely unhinged theatrical demon attack, the divine architect Vishwakarma is ordered to invent the very first playhouse, literally a heavily fortified physical building designed specifically to protect actors and the stage from evil spirits. So chapter 1 isn't just some dry theory, it's a literal action-adventure story explaining the foundational creation of theater architecture. Chapter 1 also tackles a really fundamental question for anyone studying this today. What actually are the aesthetic senses? Bharata is incredibly emphatic about this. It's just two, the eye and the ear. He deliberately leaves out touch, taste, and smell from the theatrical experience. And why? Because sight and hearing are the only senses that an entire audience can experience communally at the exact same time. Think about it. You can't share a single taste or touch with a crowd of 500 people, but an entire theater can watch the exact same gesture and hear the exact same words simultaneously. It's a brilliantly logical way to build a foundation for performance art, don't you think?
Which perfectly sets up Section 4, the divine recipe for drama.
So, knowing the senses we're targeting, how did Brahma actually engineer this art form? Well, the text says he didn't just pull it out of thin air. He extracted the absolute best parts from existing divine sources. He grabbed the element of song from the Samaveda. For movement, he took the vigorous, intense dance called Tandava from the god Shiva. And for elegance, he borrowed Lasha, or grace, from the goddess Parvati. Drama, then, is literally positioned as the ultimate synthesis of music, energy, and grace.
And that leads us to our final section, Section 5, the 4 pillars of acting. So how does a human actor actually bring all of this to life? Bharata breaks it down into 4 distinct types of acting, known collectively as abhinaya. The first pillar is angika. This is all about the physical body. It's the acting that consists of the movement of the limbs, your posture, your gestures. Before an actor even opens their mouth to speak a single word, their body has to communicate the absolute truth of that character. And that builds right into the second pillar, vachika. This one is all about vocal delivery. It's the precise and appropriate movement of the speech organs for effective recitation, dialogue, or song. We're talking tone, pitch, and the whole musicality of the spoken word. Now, the third pillar, sattvika, is deeply psychological and honestly fascinating. This refers to the action of the mind that is so intense, it forces an involuntary physical change in the actor. We're talking real tears, a sudden tremor, a genuine change in skin color, like blushing, or even horripilation, which is just the ancient fancy term for getting goosebumps. Bharata is basically saying that true acting requires such a deep internal feeling that the body just reacts automatically. Finally, we've got aharya. This covers everything outside the actor's own mind and body. It translates perfectly to what we'd call production design today. The makeup, the costumes, the props, the sets, and get this, even special mechanical effects. The text actually mentions mechanical contrivances to present things like flying chariots or aeroplanes. It's incredible that they were thinking about stage tech that early on. Now, circling back for a second to that deeply psychological acting of sattvika, take a look at this quote. Bharata argued that to get that involuntary physical reaction, like naturally blushing when you see someone you love, that emotion must literally be present in your heart. And because of this, because certain societal and romantic feelings were seen as unique to the female experience, Bharata insisted that women were strictly necessary on stage. Long before a lot of Western theatrical traditions allowed women to perform, the Natyashastra was demanding it, simply because you just can't accurately fake those specific, genuine emotions. To really wrap our heads around the sheer, breathtaking scale of this text, just look at this final quote. Bharata elevates drama above all other arts for one very simple reason. It includes all of them. According to the Natyashastra, dramatic art encompasses literally every single facet of human knowledge. Whether it's architecture for the stage, psychology for the emotions, music, dance, fashion, you name it. Theater is the ultimate mirror of the entire human experience. Which leaves us with one final thought to take with you. You've just learned the foundational rules from a text that is over 2,000 years old, right? But honestly, these rules haven't aged a single day. So the next time you sit down to binge a new television show, watch a movie, or see a live play, look a little closer. Can you spot the actor's angika and how they stand? Listen for the vachika in their delivery. Watch for that involuntary sattvika in a perfectly timed tear. And take a moment to admire the aharya of the costume and set design. The fifth Veda is very much alive today, hiding in plain sight on literally every screen and stage. Keep exploring, keep analyzing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.